Hi, my name is Evan Schwartz, and this week we did a port of a game we did last month into a new framework. So the game I worked on last month is Voice Fuel, and we'll look at that. That was done with Corona Labs, and this will just give you something to compare to. So we're going to go to the How to Play. It's just a menu option with How to Play, Credits, and then the Play. So at this point, I'm going to be recording my voice. It's going to analyze my voice and give me some fuel to move around my rocket ship. This is me recording my voice. This is me recording my voice. Alright, got pretty good on that. Alright, so now that I have fuel, I can actually pick up the asteroids that are bouncing around, and I can shoot and get them. And if I get enough, I go to the next level, which I did, and here we'll record again, record again. Here we'll record again, record again. 9 on that, and I'll just burn through all my fuel, and that's game over. And so the port I call Voice Fuel 3D. It was built in Unity. So we'll go to How to Play, shockingly similar. Credits, same thing. And we'll play this game. You'll notice that it has a little bit different look and feel. I went three-dimensional with it, so our asteroid's a little cleaner, and our spaceship looks a little more interesting. This is me filling up my ship with my voice. This is me filling up my ship with my voice. Didn't get a lot on that one. Alright. And launch. Doesn't look like I'm gonna get it. And game over. But essentially that is the Unity version of the same game. I hope you enjoyed it.
Hello, my name is Evan Schwartz, and we're going to take a look at Voice Fuel. Voice Fuel was a project that I had built in Corona Labs, and you probably just saw the screencast of both of those games, so you could see what it looked like in Corona Labs and what it looks like now in Unity. The Unity environment is set up pretty similar. It's a little more organized. It's one of the things I like about Unity. These are my scenes. The game scene, which is equivalent to the level 1 in Corona Labs. Credit scene, game over, how to play, menu. These are all shockingly similar to the way Corona Labs was broke out. The scripts were broke out a little bit more logically, I think. I've got some logic around the asteroids. My menu script is pretty similar. Return to main is pretty similar. My ship is essentially analogous to my level 1 script from Corona Labs, and then the wall script is just that's in the level 1 script, but it really could have been carved out into its own piece. But Corona Labs really has one script per scene, where in Unity I get to organize my scripts in a more logical fashion. So we'll just take a quick brief look at these scripts. As far as the process, one of the key things I noticed when I was doing the port over is having all the graphics and stuff readily available made this a lot simpler. Also, having code to kind of look at and see, walk through how I was doing my game over, how I was doing my jumping and my menu options, right? So this is all the Corona Lua scripts, but then when I come into my menu scripts, a little bit different syntax, but generally the same, right? Here's my go to this scene, go to that scene. So I had essentially a slightly different language, but a blueprint with which to build by. So the most critical thing that stood out to me during this port was I spent 2 weeks on the Corona build, gathering graphics, gathering audio files, trying to come up with what I think this game is going to do, and then implementing, trying things, and wrenching everything into place. When I brought it over to Unity, had I been a little bit more familiar with the recording process in Unity, there's some gotchas there we'll look at real quick. This probably could have been ported over in about a day and a half. And the truth is I kickstarted this about midweek after I did the reading and stuff, and spent about 3 hours on that, and then I've collectively put in another 5 to 8 hours probably closer to 8 hours on the final build in Unity that I could get to my phone and everything work pretty much the way I want. So that's a huge increase in efficiency and time, and really what I'm attributing it to is I didn't really do the agile process on this because I had a completely working model with code sample like this that I could go back to and go, wait a minute, how did I do that? What was the formulas around that? How did I do my thrusting? How did I calculate my vectors? And just grab all of that stuff and sort of stand on the shoulder of the guy who worked on this before me, which in this case was me, right? But which is why when I'm coding on projects, I always try to tell my team to be compassionate because you may be the one following you 6 months from now. All right. So here were some of the gotchas. That was generally the overview. Everything still, I tried to keep as much into one script just to keep it consistent with the Lua script, so it made it easier to port over. The recording process is still a multi-step process, very similar to the way it was in Lua. The big gotcha is this guy right here. So there's things that I love about Unity's recording, and then there's this. So when I'm recording it, it's pretty easy, right? I just tell it to record. I can designate a device, whether I want it looping, I don't know. Anyway, how long I want to record for and what's my sampling rate. Frequency is what they call that. And it drops it into an audio clip file, and that's fantastic. And they've got a process where I can, still getting used to the max scroll. It's like reverse to Windows, so I keep going the wrong way. Hang on just a second. Let me get back to where I was at. All right, yeah. So once we do the recording and we get our audio clip, I take it and I process it. So I'm using this mechanic here, which is similar to what I used in Lua script, and we'll jump over to Lua script and take a look at that. Where let's figure out where we're at on this. Get fuel, stop fueling. So yeah, you'll notice that they do the same thing. So when I play, I was able to say on complete. Very similar mechanic. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say, okay, record. When you're done recording, do this thing, right? So perform with delay of 3 seconds and then call my stop fueling. So I call my stop fueling, play this audio file, but when you're done playing the audio file, say you're done, and that way I can stop everything and process my fuel, and then I go through my algorithm for doing that. So if we go back over to Unity's version of this, I begin fueling, right? I record it, and I use a yield on return wait for 3 seconds because I know I'm only recording 3 seconds at 8,000 samples per second. Turn off the mic, and then I start my coroutine of processing and let that variable go ahead and flip. And then I process my recording, and I want to play it. Well, again, I know my audio recording is 3 seconds, so I'm going to yield and wait there and wait for it to record and then move forward with my processing. So it's this kind of daisy chaining of your event logic in such a way that you can command it. The thing that made this a little bit more challenging for me, that really added a lot of hours to it, is that they've got a bug in Unity on the audio processing. You have to take your audio clip, attach it to an audio source, play it, so it has to be played in order for it to allow this little magical thing to work, which essentially extracts the individual sample data into a float array that allows me to iterate over it and process it. That aside, Unity's is much more powerful in what I can do, and I think for the capstone that I'm moving quickly towards, this is going to be a far more powerful way to do it, because it's giving me direct access to the sample, so I can manipulate those floats and then put that audio clip back in. So if I wanted to do something interesting like lower everyone's play speed or frequency or sample rate to give them a more monstrous sound, I could do interesting things like that. But anyway, so this was pretty much the same thing for my recording the fuel. I kept my start level, so you'll see that if I fumble about here and look for my start, get create asteroid, thrust strip, start level, you'll notice that there's very similar constructs here. in my start level. Slightly different way of managing my asteroids rather than a table. I can access the game objects directly using this little construct. But the same thing, you'll see that is, I've got my begin fueling, record fueling, create asteroid. So over here I've got to create asteroid. So all in all, and I could go down each one of these, but all in all, what it boils down to is I already had a blueprint that I could follow to get this done. So rather than taking 2 weeks of minimum 4 hours a day and 12 hours on the weekends to hammer out voice fuel for through Corona Labs, it condensed everything down significantly into about 8 to 10 hours total worth of work. So ultimately, that's the rest of these scripts aren't very interesting. This is just maintaining and keeping my asteroids within my box, and this is my procedural calculation that creates those walls for me, because I'm not sure what size the device is going to be on, so it builds my wall for my game to keep everything in there. The menu script and return to main are pretty basic. So not a lot there. Most of it's all in here, and I was able to port, I'd say, at least a good 80% of that logic right from the Lua script over, and then just beating to death some of Unity's eccentricities. Anyway, thank you. I thought this was a very eye-opening experience. Being able to port from one game engine to the next, just getting a little bit under the process piece, was extremely valuable. It's interesting to see how different frameworks approach the same principles, but if you get past the syntax, right, it's the same. I'm moving from scene to scene. I'm trying to vary variables around. I'm trying to manipulate data, right? I'm reading data, manipulating data, saving data, moving it around. But the time dilation between the two events is what was remarkable there. Having a prototype to build from, having all of the code kind of sitting there, I could see easily that being analogous to a brand new virgin product that we're going to start. The benefits of having this stuff already thought out. I wasn't making any decisions on where to lay out the fonts and the menu options on the screen, what the background was going to look like. None of that energy needed to be respent. I had all that done. It was already thought out. The only thing that I went off rails with the Voice Fuel 3D, the Unity version, is I wanted to use some 3D objects in a 2D space. So the spaceship and the asteroid were 3D. The walls ended up being 3D rather than 2D, and I just thought it gave it a richer look. But generally speaking, that didn't change any of the mechanics of the game. It still was you could tell very easily that it was Voice Fuel, just with a slightly better graphic handling for the ship and the asteroids. Other than that, that's pretty much it for this week. I appreciate you listening. Thank you for your time.